So this is the start of our Brickell report, which actually details what's happened in the market in the last 6 months. I'm walking up the street here in Brickell with Fernanda, which is our Brickell expert, and we're going to give you some information, key data on what's going on in the market and explain why it's going on as well, because the why, as we always say, is more important than necessarily just the numbers and the what. So Brickell, let's start with the under $1 million market, which right now is probably the most heavy in terms of the product that exists in this area.
Correct.
So give us some statistics. How many sales have we seen? How much product have we got?
Listing actives in the market now, there are 1,500 units for sale in Brickell under that price range. 562 have been sold the past 6 months. So that means that 103 units per month are being sold on Brickell. That gives us a 16-month inventory to be absorbed, and it's not super good, but it's not really bad.
It's not terrible. Balance is what, 9
terrible.
months?
9 months,
Okay, 9
would be great.
inventory. Yeah.
But we see movement when the unit is well priced, it sells.
Yeah.
And Brickell has very well priced units at this moment in the market.
Yeah.
We've seen new buildings like the SLS lots having a good resale.
Yeah, heavy amount of discounts on those, though, haven't we?
Exactly.
Like
Up to 35% discount on an SLS. A specific unit, 2505, was sold exactly 35% discounted from asking price.
That's pretty heavy. Look, you've got a lot of product that's coming in under 400 a square foot.
Correct.
So there's a lot of opportunity to buy into this market at a pretty reduced rate and get a lot of bang for your buck. You can't go into other neighborhoods. You can't go into the beach. You can't go into the Grove and buy in under 400 a square foot.
It's really an amazing neighborhood to be in, entry level at this price point.
Highly evolved. So now the conversation moves to rentals, and we know that Brickell is very a heavy rental market, which obviously over traditional years has made it very fragile, shall we say, and it shows its fragility on our economic health score. We saw a staggering 2,000 rentals.
2,000 rentals, active rentals in the market.
In the last 6
In the last 6 months. So 336 units being rented per month compared to the 562 sales is not a healthy thing to show.
No.
However, we've been discussing it.
As we explain that a little bit more, it's kind of confusing because on the data, it shows that right now we have like 760 or so rental units available. So how can you have 760 rental units available and rent 2,000 in the last 6 months? Well, we have an answer for that too.
Exactly. Most of those units are being rented short term, and that's coming back to the market every month and increasing the number of rentals. So the thing is, I think people jump into conclusions when they analyze Brickell because they see the numbers and they don't do what we're doing here to say why and analyze the numbers. So how come this is happening?
Yeah.
And get to the bottom of it instead of jumping into conclusions that the market is suffering.
Is tanking. It's horrifying if you looked at it as 2,000 rentals and would assume so. But what we found, and when you look at our beach report, they actually outlawed Airbnb. So a lot of the short-term leases are now being turned into the Brickell market, which is obviously where we see it. And we have buildings like Panorama Tower, which is just purely rental focused. But the lower end of the market, yes, of course, it's going to typically deal with a large number of short-term rentals.
Correct.
Once you move up through the food chain, that does definitely drop off. So the big question that, look, finally we're going to touch on this point in the up to $1 million market, which is probably relevant throughout, about the changing, I guess, demographic and the changing socioeconomic behaviors within this market, because we always want to know where things are going and what happens next. So we've always said that one of the primary driver for a neighborhood will be the introduction of people that live all year round, 365. Families is obviously what you often find yourself drawing into conversation. So what are we seeing over here regarding the service for families?
the need for school. There's a need for school in Brickell, and thankfully there is a project for a K-12 school here on Brickell being built on West Brickell. And that's going to completely change face of Brickell and bring the primary users, as you were saying, even prices, even people that want to invest on Brickell and wait for the school to be completed. They will see the change in the neighborhood, the change in prices, because school drives end users here.
So as we move on now, we're going to talk about the 1 to 2 million range in Brickell. It's not as dense or as heavy in terms of product availability as the 0 to 1. But Faye, tell us about the $1 to $2 million range. How many units have we got? How many have sold? How much inventory?
The 1 to 2 million, there are 231 units for sale in the market on the MLS. 46 sales in the last 6 months. So that gives us 30 months of inventory to be absorbed. It's not the best health score. It's 50 out of 100. But we see the buildings holding good prices and good values, the older buildings in this case.
Not the new product.
Not the new products in this case. Strong buildings like the Four Seasons, which is not a surprise to us. Santa Maria is not a surprise to us either. Those buildings are well-built buildings when the buyer is really looking into the market.
Check out the list of these are the buildings that obviously you're going to be dealing with at this price point, the top selling. Right. We'll show them on the screen so you can understand them. You can also read through it in a blog.
So we can explain building by building in detail the characteristics of each one. Okay. And you understand how they hold the price so well. There is less discount, up to 7.5% discount on this market. So much less than the 1 million market.
Yeah, that's better than the $1 million market. Actually, in the other analysis, the ones with the biggest discounts at the higher end, unsurprisingly. But at this end, fewer discounts on the sales. So let's talk a little bit about now, as we're referencing our stats, we're looking at the rental market within this 1 to 2 million range. And this gives us some good telling.
Correct. We had 67 rentals in the past 6 months. Opposed to 46 sales. So we are still outnumbered in rentals compared to sales.
Yeah. Which is a problem, let's face it.
Yeah, it is.
You've got a lower score on this. And what we'll actually say in terms of those rental products out there, if you are a unit owner and you've got a product in the 1 to 2 million range, be conscious that you're probably not drawing positive equity out of your rental right now. So you've got to be really aware. Not a strong rental market, a lot of product, a lot of competition, and in terms of the selling price, certainly soft. So it just really depends, if you're an owner at this level, how long you want to carry your unit for.
It's today 15 months in the market.
15 months for the rental. So obviously you've got to be aggressive if you want to rent, but ultimately if you want to sell, you've also got to be aware that there's going to be a longer time to transition to a level that you can get some positive equity out of your unit. So again, that draws our conclusions for the $1 to $2 million mark. So now we move to the luxury end of the Brickell market, the $2 to $3 million, the 3 to 5 and the 5 above. And we're standing here in the sales office for Flatiron, appropriately an Ugo Colombo project at the high end of the market. So Faye, looking and discussing as we have done before, the key indicators within the markets, months of inventory being our big one that we focus on. What have we seen in the 2 to 3 million range, and what are we missing, and what's it telling us?
In the 2 to 3 million market, there are 41 active listings. There are 8 units sold in the last 6 months, and
that means exactly. I mean, months of inventory, it equates to 30 months of inventory.
30 months.
What are we missing on that? Because when we analysed and we sat down with the head of the sales here in this building. And just alone in the building, what are we seeing?
I think because we analyze and the data we have is the MLS, we need to really look at what the developers are doing into that range that we're analyzing. And in that range, here in Flatiron, they have units that in the 2 to 3 million, the high-end units, and only one person sold more than what has been shown in the MLS, more than 8 units in one single building.
The appetite for the product purchased in the 2 to 3 million range is not coming on resales. It's coming on new product, on pre-construction. Flatiron, probably the primary building to account for those sales. Outside of that, you have Una, and on the other side of the water into downtown, you have Aston Martin building.
Correct.
Let's get specific about the buildings on the resale so people can understand, because all too often the data is too abstract to really make sense or be useful. So the buildings that are moving on the resale market, give us the buildings, give us the names.
Always the same buildings. Santa Maria, Four Seasons, Asia, Carbonell. Those are the buildings that are getting sold. Buildings that are well built. They hold better the market value, and those are the ones always on the range that we see on the MLS. We see a constant in buildings that are well built.
So what's interesting, when you look at the new product, the stuff that gets really kind of crushed at the lower end, it's built differently. It's built almost what we call like a beehive model, where you get lots and lots of cells. When you get into the Santa Marias, the Bristols, the Jades, the Four Seasons,
Correct.
You've got a much lower density of product. You've got much bigger units, much fewer units, much more what we call primary living environment. You don't find owners want to live all year round with their families in a 12, 13, 14, or even 1,500 square foot unit. But 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, or even more, yes, all day long, you'll get primary residents in that core. When you get into those who actually want to rent, again, rental markets tend to be quite fragile, and we've always said this. The rental number of rentals that we've had, how many rentals did we have in the 2 to 3 million range in the last 6 months?
Only 8 rentals occurred, and there are 9 more available for rent. The building that has rented most was Brickell, and we came to a conclusion that that building rented, those units rented because those units were always also for sale, and they had to decide on waiting in the market on putting out for rent, and those units rented. So
rental out of necessity is really, long story short. So we're seeing some pretty big discounts at this range as well.
Big discounts. Newer buildings, we're talking up to 35% discount in the newer buildings from new construction. And there are buildings that hold better value. It's harder to negotiate, but we've seen discounts, and we can work on negotiation. Okay,
so now let's move to the real top end of the market, which is for Brickell, it's 3 to 5 million with a little bit over $5 million. I know if you go into other sectors, the numbers are going to be really different. So look, looking at the numbers and focusing primarily on how much product there is to how much stuff is moving, we see some real exaggerations here. What are the numbers now for this end of the market?
3 to 5 million, there are 26 units active listings in the MLS, being 11 over 5 million.
So it's 37 in total we've got in that whole
37 in
bracket.
total. We're in the bracket of high luxury market.
Yeah, and boom.
Same
How
buildings,
many sales?
Same buildings, same buildings, and there are only 3 sales in the past 6 months.
Yeah, that's pretty low. So, I mean, if you break that down, months of inventory.
You're talking about 4.5 years.
Yeah, 52 months of inventory.
52 months.
Scary stuff for those people who are holding product over that level.
But to get that absorbed, it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of product. I mean, I think that the lesson that we take here, and again, this is all about giving you information that's actionable that you can make decisions of. If you do own one of these resale units and the value of your product is over $3 million, you've got to be really conscious and understand that unless you're aggressive with your pricing, unless you're really competitive, you're not going to sell your unit. You're going to hold on for it for another 4 years or more. If you're happy with that, great. You hold on to it, use it, sit on it. But if you really want to get it moved, you've got to really get aggressive. I mean, there's no other alternative. And the products that did sell, the units that did sell, I mean, maybe if we can identify some of their characteristics, I mean, in terms of finish, what were the levels of these units?
Again, from the new buildings, Echo has sold in that price range, and from the older buildings, still, Hugo Colombo's development, Santa Maria, has been on the top sales, resales there in the MLS.
And they were well-finished units as well. I mean, this isn't stuff that
we're talking about 1995, the year was built in 1995. So
Yeah, so I mean, look, just because
it
it's
says
older,
something.
yeah, it's well built. I mean, this is the thing with the Ugo Colombo project, and this is why when we're standing here in Flatiron, it seemed like a really appropriate place to shoot this video. Essentially, Ugo Colombo is also the one who's behind Flatiron, and his design and his architecture is done to a level that is really designed to satisfy that very high-end buyer. Once we've gone into the low end, which is the complete opposite, you know, we had it touted as luxury, and let's face it, guys, it wasn't real high luxury. It didn't deliver this level that would satisfy the high buyer. Now, dealing as we do every day, me and Faye, we have these conversations. We sat down before this meeting. We chatted for a good 3 hours. We went through all the numbers. We recognize that our buyers right now are dominantly coming from New York, LA, DC, high tax states from the Northeast. We get our domestic buyers from within Miami. But when we're looking at this, those guys have a certain, or you watching this, have a certain level of appreciation and sophistication in terms of the quality of materials that you're using and that you will accept at the high level. So when you watch the end of this video, you're going to see some of the projects for this Ugo Colombo design build, and you'll understand why right at the top end we're dealing with an $8 million penthouse asking $8 million, but you've got a 22-foot ceiling in the living room, 2 stories up. You've got over 800, I think, or 900 square feet of terrace. You've got 4,700 square feet of living space.
And you got finished units with his quality that he wants to put, the marble he wants, the wood he wants, everything the way he wants done to keep, you know, quality in all the units. So when you see that, you know, it makes you stronger.
You can appreciate
to appreciate that you have a better quality product in your hands. And we see that in our customers.
Every day.
Of course, everybody wants price, but we need to sell well finished product to hold value.
I always say this: generic product gets crushed. Good quality product will rise, and you should always buy the best that you can for your money. Always buy the corner unit, the penthouse, the high level, the one with the views.
Correct.
Buy water view. Because look, Brickell is the urban core. It's like New York. So if you're a New York bar, you want New York lifestyle, you want to be in the heart of Miami, then this is where you're going to focus your attention. And look at dollar per square foot. I mean, we're talking, this building is around $1,200 a square foot.
Correct.
Now, look, we go to LA, we go to New York, we go to Aspen, and we know that the numbers are exponentially more finished.
Finished product.
If you go to the beach, and there is nothing wrong with the beach, we love the beach market as well, but if you do want to buy on the beach at this level, you will be paying, and accept the reality, around $2,000 a square foot for a finished project in one of the newer buildings. And if you want top of the food chain there, which is going to be like 87 Park, you're going to be more like $3,000 a square foot. So it's a lot to consider, a lot to take in.
Correct.
So as always, Faye, thank you for doing this. We'll be updating you constantly. Read our reports, and any questions, look, user analytics, we update that, it's live. You can, as a consumer, just play with it. And we also bring you some demographic data too.
Perfect,
Thanks.
thank you.
See you soon.